70 WOCA.
WOCA.
All right, 6 minutes after 10 o'clock. Thank you for tuning in. You know, Robin, ever since I was a little kid, I could look around at people and almost pick out the followers and the leaders. I could almost always do this. It was an amazing thing to observe. I never considered myself a leader, and I never considered myself a follower. So I figured there's three groups. There's the leaders, the followers, and then those who are just simply like me. Don't want to follow anybody, don't want to lead anybody, just leave me alone, I'm going to do it on my own. And the one thing I guess that I wondered about was, you know, what happens as we get older? And now I am older, and way older, I guess I could say. And we've seen it all. We've seen people who, back in childhood, were maybe the more meek ones who became the leaders because, well, quite frankly, sometimes the leaders when we're kids aren't really necessarily the best ones to do well in school and don't necessarily end up running corporations. Mm-hmm. It is kind of funny how life does a little flip-flop on us. And I'm not saying all the time. I'm sure some of the kids who were leaders in school went on to become leaders later in life. But you definitely see a lot of people, and you hear this all the time from people who've done well. You hear them say, you know, when I was a kid, I was really shy. I don't know how I did this, and maybe learned how to do it or whatever. Well, there might be something to that, something to the idea that you can learn how to be a successful executive. There's a book here. It's by Temeko Richardson. I hope I'm saying Temeko's name correctly. The book is called Get a Clue. 10 Steps to an Executive IQ, and she's on the phone to talk to us about it. Let me just tell you a little bit about her first. She is a consultant to Team Disney. So right away, you know, Disney's picky. They're not going to pick anybody to be a consultant to Disney. You think, wow. She's a techie entrepreneur, it says here, an advisor to C-suite executives and leaders at Fortune 500 companies, Oppenheimer Funds, DirecTV, Sabre, Travelocity, Mass Mutual Financial Group. It goes on and on and on. And her book, Get a Clue, 10 Steps to an Executive IQ. Temeko Richardson. Good morning, Temeko. Am I saying your name correctly first?
Yes.
Okay. That sounded like you weren't sure. Is it Temeko?
It is Temeko.
Temeko! But you were going to let me say it wrong the whole time.
Well, she likes you.
All right.
You're a friendly guy.
I'm a friendly guy. Well, good morning. Thank you for being on the air with us.
Thank you for having me on the air.
And where are you? Where are you calling from?
Right now I'm in California.
Oh, you got up early. My son
Not
is...
really.
Oh, not really.
My first meeting is usually at 4 a.m.
Oh.
Your first meeting is at 4? Where do you work?
Well, no, I have clients on the East Coast as well as the West Coast.
Oh, I got you. Oh, I got you. Oh, so do you work out of your home?
No, I have two offices, one in New York, one in L.A.
Wow, that's pretty awesome.
Oh, man, you've impressed me already. So let me ask you this about your childhood. Did I describe you at all? Were you the kid that did not look like you'd be a leader?
No, I was the opposite. I probably was the kid who looked like the leader.
Okay.
I was always the one who was like the president of the student government. And, you know, kind of where I said things should go with the little school government and things like that, people kind of followed. Okay, well, so you. I don't know if you're the exception or not. I've seen so many people and had so many. Rob and I have interviewed several people every day for the last dozen years, and it seems like a lot of people will say, I was the kid that you'd least likely think would have made a success out of myself. So you're the exact opposite. You're the one everybody thought would, and you did. Well, I think it's also like we used to say that, you know, I had like a Jewish mom, so I could not fail, or that would be it. So getting less than an A- is like something that could not happen in the household. So
see, I've always known it's the Jewish mom thing. You have to have a Jewish mom.
You do. You have to. It's incredible. But I think that also was instilled all along because, you know, like I did high school in like 3 years. I did double major, minor in 4 years in math, computer science, and engineering. And then I did my master's in systems engineering with Wharton courses as well at UPenn. So in a year. So everything I've done has kind of been along that trend because I think it's been instilled in me since a child. And so I think I'm a little different with that.
Okay, and so you've parlayed that, and actually leadership skills in your case seem to be to everybody else's benefit because they tap into your leadership skills.
Exactly. They tap into a little bit more than leadership skills. I'll say they tap into understanding the difference between being a leader and being a manager, because there is a difference.
Okay.
So a lot of times what ends up happening is that you work with people who are on a managerial or a mid-level management level, and what they do is they try to get people to do tasks and assignments and manage and get the deliverables done by a particular time, and that's really their focus. But it's not really empowering people. You have to learn as a leader to, if you're going to be a leader and not a manager, you have to empower people and make them want to do something. So change their mindset that there's an initiative to want to do that. So,
I think you're right. Yeah, a good leader probably is also. I'm sorry, a good manager is probably also a good leader because. Let me take that back. A good manager who is not a good leader probably has a staff that does what he or she wants, but maybe doesn't really like the person, you know. But a good leader, but a good leader often is liked, and maybe that makes it a little bit easier for the manager to do the management part of his or her job.
Exactly. I think a lot of times that one of the things that we discount when, some people go to work and they sit there every day and they sit in their cubicles, and what they don't realize from a management perspective is, these people really most of these people don't really want to be here. They'd rather, be on the beach. They'd rather, go sightseeing. They'd rather, go shopping, rather be at a Monday night football game or whatever the situation is, right? So you have to keep it interesting for people to want to be there and to want to do their best. And a lot of times, especially with this economy, we've seen a lot of jobs go out of the, a lot of layoffs, a lot of employment cuts, and even companies shutting down, and shutting down particular offices and sending jobs overseas. But a lot of that also has to do with the mediocrity that people become accustomed to because they're not doing a lot during their 40 hours at work,
That's
35
right.
hours at work.
Boy, I love that. Yeah.
You start putting these things into place where people just keep getting a job and they're only putting out maybe 10 hours of real work in a 35, 40-hour week. And, I'm not saying that the whole economy should go down, but those types of things you should have a look at those quarterly as a business leader, instead of waiting until, your revenue starts getting sliced.
Oh, yeah,
so I think, if companies did that along the way and started doing performance-based evaluations and basically incentivizing people for having great performance in whatever manner you choose. I mean, like we talked about Disney, like whatever it is, they could be the Team Disney Person of the Month. They can get 5 extra passes to go to the park. Whatever you can incentivize people with in order to perform their best and be loyal to the company, I think that's always a huge advantage.
And your title says it all, Get a Clue, because within the pages of the book, when a person is reading it, you always seem to subliminally stress the power of observation. You have to have that type of observation in your day-to-day life. Otherwise, whatever it is you want to do for yourself or you're doing for others, you're going to fail. You need to be aware.
Oh, absolutely. And I think one of the key things that people miss out on is that time frame when you're in great success. Because when you're in your short-term success, that's when you should start doing your long-term planning. And a lot of times we get so excited that, we've made that $1 million mark, or we've made that $2 million mark this month with sales, and you keep things going as they are. But you always have to have that ability to look for the next best thing, or maybe change a product or change an offering around so that it attracts new customers and as well keeping the existing customers.
I want to ask you a question, Temeko, going back to what word you used. It's the word mediocrity. How does an executive manager, a CEO, or somebody who's up the ladder, looking down at his corporation, how does he measure whether or not his organization is only mediocre? How do you know? I mean, if you reach that $2 million mark, you could still be mediocre. I mean, you could still say, we got room for improvement. So how do you determine whether that's true or whether you're really just being a taskmaster and trying to get everybody to do way more than really should be expected?
Well, I think one is that you need to understand your customers. A lot of times what ends up happening is that once you believe you're successful, you get out of tune with your customers. And I mean, a perfect example is like on a flight that I took last night. I won't even fly that airline anymore next year. Like, it's in my mind that I won't fly them. And I have 3 million miles on them, and I'm like, I'm done with them. And a lot of that is because they don't understand who actually made that airline to what it was supposed to be in terms of quality for business customers. And now, like, the quality has gone down to such level where it's like it's not even worth paying the money for the ticket. You might as well fly on a lower fare type of airline and get the same amount of service. So it's about knowing your customers. So when you get out of tune with that and you start thinking that it's about quantity rather than quality, that always drives down your business. The second thing, and that then puts you at a mediocrity in terms of what you're providing to your customer. Then the second point is understanding what your competitors are doing. If you have no clue what your competitors are doing and how they are faring with their revenues, products, and services, then you're going to be out of tune with what you need to be offering.
Oh, yeah.
And a lot of times that happens because of ego. And executives and business leaders,
That's right.
and even mid-level managers, they have a lot of ego. Sometimes you can't tell them anything. They know everything, and that's always the point of failure. When you get to the point where you think you know everything, and no one can tell you anything. And then the third part of that is not understanding the social media footprint and how that impacts what people do, their patterns of spending, what their likes and dislikes are, and not taking that seriously. And whether you're a mom and pop shop or a huge enterprise, you still have to know what people's likes and dislikes are, who they're reaching out to, and how you can build a product or service that can attract them so that they'll spend more money with you. So a lot of that is all missed. And that is where the mediocrity comes into play.
Yeah, and we wouldn't have that if our society didn't have some kind of a capitalism as its base. I know in other shows we've debated capitalism, and we've had our share of callers who think it was absolutely the worst thing America ever did was to be a capitalistic. But that's what does it. I mean, if you didn't have capitalism, then you'd probably still have the first computer. It's the fact that the laptops are starting to sell less than tablets is because that's what the people want.
Yeah.
And because the company, as you just said, Temeko, in order to keep up with the other companies and keep up with what the public wants, you have to change.
Yeah, you definitely do. And I think a lot of it, like if you look at BlackBerry, and this is in the Wall Street Journal, so
right.
BlackBerry is now focusing on, they're going to turn their focus from the consumer market to the business market. And a lot of that is, one, that's smart because they are the most secure smartphone that's ever been made. So from a security perspective, in terms of not getting hacked and all the different things that happen on all the other types of phones, yeah, that's always a smart move. However, you can't wait until the last minute in order to, provide upscale opportunities and new applications and new functionality. Just because you have the market, you always have to be renewing your creativity with different things to keep up with what people want.
You do stress levity in your book. You have some nice stories in there for that. And then you also stress warmth because you really can't have a robotic culture. You have to really seem to be genuinely interested in the person who is going to take your advice or who is going to purchase the product.
Yes, you definitely have to have genuine interest. And I think that one of the problems with people now is, like, we're not even on the phone anymore. We're mostly texting or emailing or tweeting or sending a post and, subliminal messages through posts and things of that nature, which we've gotten away from having real communication with people. We don't know how to, converse with the person that's sitting next to us. We've gotten to a place where we don't even know anything outside of 140 characters. So in order to know people, you have to have conversation and some type of dialogue with them. And that's very important as a leader, whether you're at a nonprofit or private sector. You have to be able to have a conversation with people to understand what they're going through, what their dislikes are, and you have to make people comfortable with you. And the more comfortable with you that they are, the more that they're going to purchase from you.
Temeko Richardson is our guest. Her book is called Get a Clue, 10 Steps to an Executive IQ. We've been talking about incompetence. I want to talk about I want to talk about incompetence. We've been talking about mediocrity, but I want to talk about incompetence for a second here. Something in your book reminded me of something Robin and I did some time ago. Just to give you a little background so that you understand this, we were creating artwork. When we don't do radio, sometimes we do artwork, okay? So we had this little side business with art, and we decided we wanted to advertise it with a flyer. And we went to a local print shop and we put together a little ad that we could hand out, a little brochure, and we were so proud of it, right? It was full color. We were just so proud of it. My son looked at it, who was probably 15 at the time, and he said, "This looks crappy." Yeah. So, well, it looks crappy. So then we took that to heart, and then we went and bit the bullet and spent the money that was necessary to create a nice looking brochure.
Yeah.
From in other words, we did it ourselves and thought that just color printing and folding the paper, and we've got a nice little brochure. Not true. And that's one of the things you talk about in the book, how incompetence actually looks bad. Like, not that we as the creators of the art were incompetent, but the average person looking at the brochure wouldn't think anything other than, oh, I'm not hiring these people, right?
Yeah, because of the color and stuff.
That was part of what in your book you talk about half-baked music and book projects that don't increase awareness but rather show incompetence and weakness.
Right.
I'm reading from the book now.
Well, thank you for that. Well, I think a lot of that is because sometimes we believe that we can do everything and we fail to delegate to others who have the expertise. And don't get me wrong, it's very hard to find people who have true expertise. There are people that, claim to be experts in an area, but they're really not. So once you weed through that and you get someone who is very knowledgeable about what they're supposed to do, you definitely need to pay the price in order to get it done professionally. Because the same way that you're doing something half-baked, someone is doing it excellent. And the people that may know you, like your family and friends, they may go to you for the same type of product, but the other people outside of your family and friends, they're looking at that presentation first. If that presentation meets what they expect from just how it's supposed to look on that brochure, in your example, they won't purchase the product or service. So that is something that is right across the board in terms of how you do things and how you present yourself. And a lot of times what ends up happening is we hire, friends or family or somebody that a friend recommends, and we don't want to hurt their feelings, and we just keep on with them. And that's also a demise too, because the longer you do that, the more damage you're doing to your reputation.
And by the way, that applies here at the radio station too. It not necessarily recordings, because usually people have their radio advertisements produced here, so the recordings sound well, but sometimes they're not written here. A client will sometimes insist that his brother-in-law knows how to write advertisements, and they'll come in with this script that is just it's just, you try to advise people, but they don't always listen. The brother-in-law wrote it, and they're going to use it.
Yeah.
And meanwhile, we've got people who work here who write the copy for some of these ads that have decades of experience in marketing.
Right.
But you can't always convince people. Sometimes it's just, hopefully the book will get picked up by some of the people in business. The book, again, is called Get a Clue, 10 Steps to an Executive IQ. Temeko Richardson knows what she's talking about, and she doesn't just do it for her own business. She's all over the globe. Gets up at 4 o'clock to speak to people on the East Coast. She's at, where are you in California?
I'm in Los Angeles.
In LA, okay.
Well, Larry gets up at 3 a.m.
In Los Angeles, they don't wake. In Los Angeles, they don't wake up until about 10. So that's okay.
Yeah.
I know. I've been there, and I love that lifestyle. But it may not necessarily be the best if you're trying to do business on the East Coast from there, right?
No, exactly.
And as part of your background is an avid runner and a marathon person, so you yourself have to practice that due diligence every day in the outside lifestyle that you have, not just in business, but also in the things that make you smile and happy.
Well, I think you have to have something, and with the rate of suicides of executives, one thing they're missing is a well-balanced life. And what people don't understand is that when you are at the top, it becomes a lot more lonelier than when you were even at middle level management.
I'll join you. If you're having an issue with that, I can.
Oh, but that's an extremely good
that's
point.
What I say. I tell all my friends, I'm like, at the end of the day, there is no reason for you to be lonely. So, if we need to go take a flight to Paris and, just hang out for your balance, I'm down. I can go.
There you go.
Flight to Paris from LA. You're in the air longer than you're actually in Paris, by the way, when you're flying from LA to Paris. You are a fun guest. I'm just curious real quickly about the book itself. Especially the title. I mean, were you getting frustrated with some clients of yours and you thought, get a clue. I should write a book.
Yeah.
I mean, how did the book happen?
Well, it happened because every time you go so in my line of business, you go from different projects to different projects. And some of them you get in the weeds and you're doing the development, you're solving problems. Other ones, you're more on a high level and you're, coming up with the architecture for the technology architecture and for the entire enterprise. And then you're sitting with these people and you're going, could you please just get it? Like, you don't understand, how do you not understand the basics?
Yeah.
And they are so clueless. I mean, it actually satisfies the knowledge of that people get to places because of who they know and not necessarily what they know. And a lot of times it just comes full circle, and you're like, oh my God, you must have known someone. And in some cases you're going,
that's right.
Wait a minute, how does this person still here? This must be a blackmail situation. Like, they must have some pictures on somebody. Because there's no way that you got here because you actually knew what you were doing. I mean, so that is actually what spawned the book. It was like, I couldn't take it anymore. I'm like, I'm going to take all these examples and just put it in a book.
I love that.
And hopefully someone would actually read it. And then, it's just, sometimes it's just ridiculous, to say the least.
Yeah, I think we've kind of comparing notes. It sounds like we've seen some similar situations. You are a fun guest and a really good message, and you've put it together very concisely in the book. It's called Get a Clue, 10 Steps to an Executive IQ. Temeko Richardson was going to let me say her name incorrectly the entire interview.
Yeah.
You pick your battles. You have to learn to pick your battles.
I have a copy of the book, so let me give away the copy I have and give Temeko a chance to tell us about websites and how else we can get the book. Do you have a website?
Yes, you can go to therlcgroup.com. And there's also the blog at blog.therlcgroup.com. And then if you want to follow me for my leadership, motivation, entrepreneurship, as well as sport, as sports keeps me balanced, you can follow me on Twitter at Temeko Runs, that's TEMEKORUNS. So those are all the contacts.
All right. What's the last marathon you ran?
Last Toronto, actually.
How long ago was that?
When I were in Toronto, that was last October.
Wow.
Wow.
So
Wow.
yeah, normally I do about 22 to 24 a year, but promoting the
Wow.
book-
That's
Yeah.
2 a month. Oh, man.
yeah.
And I got trouble
But-
walking to the parking lot.
Yeah.
But writing the book and promoting the book has taken precedence over that. So with all the book signings and things of that nature that go on now during my marathon time. So this year I'll just run one in November and one in December and full out the year, and then I'm done.
There
And
you
then
go.
back to 22 next year.
Wow. Well, you are amazing. So inspirational.
Yeah, and it just fits in with everything else we've learned about you in this short time. Temeko Richardson, thank you so much for being on the air with us today. Again, the book is called Get a Clue, 10 Steps to an Executive IQ. Temeko Richardson spells her first name, T-E-M, as in Mary, E-K-O, T-E-M-E-K-O. And Temeko, thank you so much.
Thank you, and you guys have a wonderful day.
Fun interview. We'll take a break and be right back.
Extraordinary, inspirational. One of the world's most beloved musicals, Les Miserables, is live on stage at Ocala Civic Theater September 5th through October 13th. The tale of Jean Valjean's quest to redeem his past is set against the backdrop of the French Revolution. With an unforgettable score including I Dreamed a Dream, Master of the House, and Bring Him Home, this Broadway production will weave its magic in a live performance. To purchase tickets, call 236-2274